Welcome to this tutorial brought to you by River City Graphics. Today I'm going to be showing you how to password protect areas of your Flash documents. So to get started, we're going to open up Flash. And once we have that open, I'm going to create a new ActionScript 3 document. Then I'm going to set the stage to black. And the first step in creating this password protected area is to create some text. So I'm going to go over the text tool. And I have it on Times New Roman, white, and 22 font. And I'm just going to click, and I'm just going to type out name, and then create another one, and I'm just going to call it password. Alright, so now that I have those, I'm just going to take and position them together. You can use the arrow keys, or you can use the align window if you want. And now what we're going to do is actually add some text fields in order to allow people to type in a name or a password. And there's two ways that you can do this, and the first way is that you can take and go to your text field or your text tool, and you can go down to input text, and you can take and drag out a text input, and then you can just have people type into that. And if you want to make that a password input, you can go down to the behavior, and instead of single line, just go to password, and then whenever you type in it, it will be asterisk. Now, I'm not actually going to be using this method, but I just wanted to point that out in case you wanted to. What I'm going to be doing is going up to Window and then down to Components, and I've done a tutorial on each of these Flash components before, and so if you want more detail, you can go check those out. But what we're going to be using today is the text input components, and so I'm just going to drag these out. So we're going to drag out two of those, and then I'm also going to drag out a button component. And the reason I'm using these over just the input text fields is that I think that these give a better look, and when you actually test your movie, it has like a glow whenever you click on this, and this has a little rollover built in and everything. So it just takes a little less time in order to create everything. You can always create a button by creating just a rectangle and then converting it to a symbol with F8 and then adding all your code in like that, but I think that this has a nice little stylish look and it's quick and easy to use. So there's two bonuses right there. So now let's just get back to creating our form here. So what I'm going to do is just position this around. I'm just going to select each of these inputs, and I'm just going to drag them out so we have a little bit more room here. And then what I'm going to do is we're going to make a hidden field, and the way that we're going to do this is just go over to our text tool. We're going to go down to dynamic text. So you use static text if you want something that people aren't going to be really selecting. It's just going to stay on the stage and do nothing except just be read. Dynamic is something that's going to be changed usually with ActionScript, and input is where your users are going to type in something. So since we're going to be putting something out with ActionScript, we're going to want dynamic text. So I'm just going to take and scale down a little box here, and what I'm going to do is take and make that 12 point instead of 22, which we had. And now I can just take and scale this up so that it's about the same size as that cursor. Alright, and what we're going to do with this is if somebody takes and puts in the wrong password or wrong name, it's going to take and give them a little message that says, you put in the wrong thing, please try again, basically. So we're just going to put that right there, and then we're going to take our button and move that up. So we'll just make sure, if you click on this, you can see the outline, and since it's just see-through, we won't have to worry about actually seeing that on when we look at it until somebody actually types in something wrong. So the first thing that we're going to do is we can change this from saying label on the button to actually saying something that's relevant. So I'm just going to change it to submit. So go over to your properties, and you'll see that there's a little property called label, and you can just take and type in whatever you want. So I'm going to type submit, hit enter, and then bam, it changes it to submit. So the next thing that we need to do is actually add in our instance names for each of these things, because they're pretty much useless to us until we can apply ActionScript to them. So we're going to go up to the first one, which is the name one. Go over to your properties, and where it says instance name, you just click, and what we're going to call it is name underscore input. Alright, so that's just give it a name of basically what it's doing. So you're inputting a name there, so that is easy to remember. And then we're going to do the same thing for passwords. So we're going to say pass underscore input. And then for our little hidden field here, we can call it, I don't know, how about like error field? Because it's going to be shown only if there's an error in their password and name correlation. So then we can go down to our button, and for the instance name on that, we can just call it submit underscore btn for button. Alright, so now I think that we're actually ready to start coding this, but first we're going to set up our timeline. So for what we've already created, it's all on the same layer. You can actually split it up if you want, but I find it easier to just leave it all in one layer. And so we can take, and we're going to call this form, because that's what the user is going to be typing into. And real quick, I'm just going to move all this stuff so that it's a little bit more centered. Just a personal preference there. And so what we're going to be doing is creating two more layers. So you can come down here to this little new layer button. If you roll over it, you can see it say new layer. It's off screen for this video, but if you roll over it, you'll see it. So we're going to click twice. And then what we're going to do is make one, and we're going to double click and call it content. And then we're going to make another one and call it AS for action script. So we have our form on one layer, we have our content, and then we have our actions. So the way that this is going to work is it's going to send it to the secret content, basically, which is going to be on a separate frame. So on frame 1, you should only have the form and the action script and everything. And so on frame 2, what we're going to do is right-click on the content layer on frame 2, right-click, go up to Insert Keyframe, and then what we can do is just type something there. And you would actually have content there, but I'm just going to, I don't know, type in password correct, exclamation point, and then I can size this out and position that around. So now basically if we type in the stuff right, it's going to go to the second frame, which is your content, and it's just going to toggle right over to that. So now we're actually ready to take and put in the actions that's going to run this. So we're going to go up to the AS layer, click on the first frame, then click on your actions frame window. If you don't have that, you can go up to window to find it. So I'm just going to click on that. And then on the first frame, what we're going to do is just put a stop action. So stop, open close parentheses, semicolon. And then the next thing that we're going to do is create an event listener, because this whole thing is going to run once that submit button is clicked. So we need to listen for that event and wait for it. And once it's clicked, then we're going to actually start processing the name and password. So we're going to say submit underscore btn dot add event listener. Alright, and that's a capital E and a capital L, open close parenthesis, and the semicolon. And then back in the parentheses, we're going to type mouse event, capital M, capital E, dot click, in all caps, and then in comma. And we can just name a function, and you can name this whatever you want. I'm just going to call it pass check, because it's basically checking to make sure that the password is correct and the name is correct. So now what we can do is just hit enter a couple times, and then we're going to write the function pass check. So we're going to say function space pass check, and then open parenthesis, close parenthesis, and inside of the parentheses I'm going to put event colon and then mouse event, and again capital M capital E on that, and then outside of the parentheses we're going to put a colon, void, open curly bracket, hit enter. And for me it adds the curly bracket, the second one, but it might not for you, so you want to make sure that there's a closed curly bracket there. So now inside of this little nest here, what we're going to do is put an if statement. So we're going to say if open close parenthesis, and then we're going to put a curly bracket and then hit enter, and it'll automatically put another curly bracket. So basically what we're doing here is saying if whatever's inside of these parentheses happens, then we're going to do what's inside of the curly brackets. So we're going to go and put the first thing into the parentheses. And so what we're actually checking for is that the name and password equal the correct thing. So we're going to say the way that we're going to actually target these text input components is by saying their instance name. So name underscore input, which was the instance name of our name text input. And then we're going to say dot text. And so that's going to target the text that's been typed in. And we're going to say space equals equals space, and then put a couple of quotes. Alright, so now we're saying if the text input is equal to this, so we're going to need to put like a username or a name right there. So I'm just going to put Kevin, which is my name, and then we're going to take, and after our little quotes here, we're going to hit space, and then we're going to put two ands, two of the ampersands, so shift 7, and then space, and we're going to do the same thing for the password. So pass underscore input space equal equals space, two quotes, and then inside of that we're going to take and put our password, which I'm just going to use something really terribly secure. So I'm going to put pass123. So if you have this password, make sure and change it, because I'm sorry to inform you, it's horrible. So we're going to take and use that. So basically what it's saying is, if the name that's put in is Kevin and the password is pass123, then we're going to do something. So make sure that you have doubles on the equal signs and the ands in order for this to work correctly. So what do we actually want it to do? We want it to take and go to that second frame where our content is, where it says password correct. So we're going to say go to and stop. And we want the and to be capitalized and the stop to be capitalized. And then open close parenthesis, semicolon, and back in the parentheses we're going to take and put a 2. So it will now go to the second frame. So now all of that should work correctly. So it will, if you put in the correct thing, it's going to take and go to the second frame. But the problem happens, what we haven't actually put in yet is if they get it wrong. So what we're going to do is just hit enter and then type else. So this is if-else statement. So if this happens, then do this. Otherwise, you're going to do this. So the otherwise is the else part of it. So we're going to say open curly bracket, enter, and again it adds a curly bracket for me. Make sure you have a closed curly bracket if it didn't automatically do that. And so then we're going to type error underscore field, which was the instance name of our little hidden field that we created, and then again dot text. So the same thing for the components as the dynamic text field. And then so I'm going to do space equals space, and then I'm going to do just some single quotes, which are apostrophes, and then a semicolon. And inside of the single quotes, I'm going to put incorrect name or password. Alright, so basically here's a little tip for you guys. If you're ever doing any kind of password protection or logins or anything like that, and you want to say that basically the login failed, don't use just the name or the password. So I could have said the name was incorrect or the password was incorrect, and by doing that, what you're doing is saying you got the name right, now all you need to do is figure out the password, or you got the password right, now all you need is the name. So by saying that you got there's either an incorrect name or password, you're not telling somebody that's potentially trying to get past your security that they got part of it right. So that's just a little security tip for you guys. So now this should all be working, so we're just going to go up to Control and then Test Movie, Test. And we seem to have a bit of an error here. You can check out the compiled errors, and then it's probably in the action script. And you can see that we have a bit of an issue here. I have name input.text, and I'm supposed to have pass input.text. So I'm just going to take and put in pass input.txt, and that should fix the problem. So I'll just go to Control, Test Movie, and now we have no error. So I can just test this and go Kevin pass 123, and you can see that we can actually see the password, and we're going to change it so that it actually shows up as asterisks, but I wanted you to be able to see that that's what I'm typing in. So I click Submit, password correct, it goes to our content, good to go. So we're just going to do Control Test Movie again, and we're going to type in the wrong thing, which could be random or it could be nothing at all. Click Submit. It says incorrect name or password, and you see it seems to be cutting off the IN on incorrect, and I think I know why that is. So I'm just going to close this, and so now we'll make the finishing changes. So first we're just going to click on our hidden area there, and the reason that it's doing that is we need to take and turn off the anti-alias to use device fonts, and that will fix that problem. And then we can probably also bump that up because it was a little bit small, so I just put it on 14 size font, and that should be good. So the second thing I was going to show you how to do is actually change the password from regular text to hidden text, which is using the asterisks like every web form that uses it these days online. So I'm just going to click on the password field here and click on over here in the components, display as password, check the value to a check mark, and now it will take and display that as a password. So another thing that I wanted to show you is if we go back to our actions, you can also add in more than one password or more than one little user here. Now if you're adding a ton of users, this isn't really the system that's going to handle that. You'd want a login system and everything like that. But for just a couple people, then this might actually work out for you. So what we can do is we can take and say we can copy this whole top part, paste it down here, and we can say else if, and what that's going to do is say basically if this happens then do this, else if this happens do this, and then as the last resort then take and say that the password is incorrect. So we can basically change this. So now a lot of times you'll want to take and put in the lowercase as well. So I'm just going to show you that. You can take and make a whole new name or a new user, but I'm just going to take and put in the lowercase so that we can also enable that to work. So now if I go to Control Test Movie, Test, we should be able to type in Kevin and then pass 1, 2, 3, and you can see now that we have asterisks right here. And I click Submit, password correct, it all works. And then we can also go to Control Test Movie and Test, and you can see that if I click Submit, the incorrect name or password is bigger now, and it's showing all of the text. So those are just a couple of little tweaks that you can make along the lines. It's really frustrating to try and figure out why your text is cutting off part of it, but that anti-alias, if you change that, that seems to work most of the time. So I hope you guys learned something in this tutorial. This is a pretty useful tactic, or a pretty useful technique to use in your files if you just want to hide something, if you want to make a little section for yourself. One of the main things that I've seen it used in is games, Flash games. And I don't know if you've played a lot of Flash games online, but if you have, some of them have certain little chapters and stuff, and once you get through some of the certain levels, they'll offer you a password so you can go straight to that level if you come back to play again. So that would be an instance of this. You would type in that password and then you'd go straight to the frame for that level. So that's just a little instance of where you could use this in a practical application. So I hope you guys learned something in this tutorial. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and comment. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.